Project Stargate, Psychic Spies. What if you could spy on your enemies without ever leaving your chair? What if you could see inside locked rooms, secret bunkers, and even across time, using only the power of your mind? Sounds impossible until you learn about Project Stargate. This is the true story of how the U.S. government spent millions training real-life psychic spies, and why it may have worked better than they ever admitted. Welcome to Dark Chapter. It's the early 1970s. The United States and the Soviet Union are locked in a Cold War, one not just of bombs and bullets, but of mind games and intelligence. Rumors begin to circulate. The Soviets are investing heavily in parapsychology, testing psychics, telepaths, even psychokinetic soldiers. And according to some sources, they're getting results. The CIA, always watching, decides it can't afford to fall behind in the psychic arms race. In 1972, the U.S. intelligence community funds an experimental program through the Stanford Research Institute, or SRI, in Menlo Park, California. Two physicists, Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ, are brought in to investigate a radical idea. Can human beings gather intelligence through remote viewing, the psychic ability to see distant people, places, or events, using only the mind? And so begins the strange tale of Project Stargate. Remote viewing, at its core, is simple, at least in theory. A trained subject enters a meditative, focused state and is given a target coordinate, a set of meaningless numbers meant to represent a secret location, object, or person. The viewer then describes, often in sketches or vague impressions, what they see in their mind's eye. This isn't psychic reading. It's closer to a mental reconnaissance mission, and shockingly, it starts to work. In test after test, remote viewers describe details of classified installations, Soviet submarine ports, even missile silos, with stunning accuracy. The CIA, the DIA, and even U.S. Army intelligence begin taking notice, and what started as an experiment becomes a full-scale Black Ops program. Enter Ingo Swann, a New York artist with a gift. Swann is one of the first and most talented remote viewers. He claims he can leave his body and view distant locations, even Jupiter, before NASA's probes arrive. Then there's Pat Price, a former police officer who astounds intelligence officials by describing the interior of a Soviet base. Right, down to the machines and floor layout. Later, he dies under mysterious circumstances. There's also Joseph McMoneagle, known as Remote Viewer 001. He's said to have located hostages, predicted terrorist attacks, and even viewed hidden Soviet weapon development years before satellite confirmation. These weren't fortune tellers. They were government-trained operatives, whose minds were their greatest weapon. Between the 1970s and 1990s, the program, now dubbed Project Stargate, is tasked with some of the most sensitive missions in U.S. intelligence history. Some of the most unbelievable remote viewing targets included locating downed aircraft in enemy territory, searching for drug cartels and missing soldiers, spying on secret Soviet laboratories, and even viewing inside classified Chinese nuclear facilities. And in 1981, a viewer allegedly found a crashed Soviet bomber in Africa, before satellites confirmed it. There's even a case where a remote viewer sketched the location of a kidnapped general in Italy, and the intelligence proved useful to rescuers. Were these all coincidences, lucky guesses, or proof that consciousness defies space and time? Over the years, the project was shuffled through a series of code names: Sunstreak, Grill Flame, Center Lane, and finally, Stargate. Each name represented a different agency, sometimes the Army, sometimes the DIA, sometimes the CIA. This wasn't a fringe science lab anymore. It was embedded in military intelligence. Thousands of pages of data were collected. Remote viewers were sent on real missions. But then, in 1995, the CIA did something unexpected. They declassified Project Stargate, and just like that, the program was shut down, or so they claimed. When the files were released to the public, they told two stories. The official narrative: remote viewing had limited success but wasn't reliable enough to justify funding. The program was scrapped. The conspiracy theory: the real work continues, buried deeper under black budgets and private contractors. Even the declassified files are redacted, fragmented, and missing entire years. Why? Some believe Stargate uncovered something too big to reveal, not just intelligence, but the nature of human consciousness, time, and perception. Skeptics argue that remote viewing was never scientifically validated, that it produced vague, inconsistent results and only succeeded through retrofitting predictions to real events. But believers, including many military officials, insist it worked. Even CIA officers, such as Kit Green and Paul Smith, have gone on record stating that some data could not be explained by normal means. Could the human mind be capable of more than we understand? In its later years, Stargate began attracting attention from researchers investigating UFOs, alien contact, and even interdimensional travel. Some remote viewers claimed to see non-human intelligences. Others said they accessed other timelines, other worlds, and even consciousness beyond death. By this point, Stargate had moved from Cold War tool to a gateway to the unknown, and perhaps that's why it was shut down, or moved far beyond public view. So what was Project Stargate? Really? A failed experiment in Cold War paranoia? A secret success the world was never meant to understand? Or a glimpse into something far stranger, a hidden power within us all? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Real or cover-up? Subscribe to Dark Chapter for more government secrets, buried files, and the truth that lies just out of reach. Fade to black. Outro screen. Subscribe, plus watch next video.